Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. We are talking about all things freedom on this podcast when it comes to building a property investment business that actually gives you the things that you wanted when you started. Now today you are going to be joined by Dom and Dave, and they are talking about mastery and becoming your ideal self, which on our blueprint it's the right hand bottom pillar, mindset mastery. And today it's all about accessing your unlimited potential so that you can transform your whole life, not just your business. Now, yes, of course, you've got to have a great strategy. You've got to be able to master yourself and be really productive. But if you really want the secret sauce for how to make those parts of your business truly fly and get great business results as well as great life results, this is how you do it. So fair warning, this may transform your whole life. So take a deep breath and enjoy. Here's Dom and Dave.
Hello listeners, this is Dominic Beechnow zooming in from London with the lovely Dave Wigram-Tomes, who's zooming in from Lake Como, of all places.
It's very nice here. Well, we've got a bit of rain, to be honest with you, but it's up in the mountains, but it's gorgeous part of the world.
The view is pretty spectacular. Those of you who are listening might want to check out the YouTube, because then you can actually see the view that I'm enjoying on my screen that Dave has behind him. So today's topic, Dave, is becoming your ideal self. What on earth does that mean? How can we translate this to the listeners?
Well, I think first thing I'd say about this one is that there's a fundamental shift in mindset you have to take to want to get to this track, this part of our blueprint, as it were. And that is that your journey through life can be different. It can be more enjoyable than it currently is. It can always be more enjoyable. It can be a happier time. But that to do that, the thing you can change is yourself.
Right.
And the question is, what needs to change? And obviously we've covered in previous episodes, we covered the self-awareness point, which is very much that what, and we've covered the overcoming obstacles, the limiting beliefs, which is very much what you're going to do to help that. But not just looking at the negatives, it's like, what's the positive you want to become? Who is it? And it's like everything we're called property strategy as business. It's because life, in order to get somewhere in life, you often want to have a strategy, and we've brought that into property as our way to help people, is to say, right, have a great strategy, a great direction, an end goal you want to head towards, and plan it all out. That's what a strategy is. So, well, do that for yourself as well. Like, you want to become a particular type of person. You want to have a particular type of life, which requires you to become a particular type of person to have that life, and that is all doable. So it's just all about that realization, the change of that perspective, that there is something inside that you can change, which we do through the self-awareness and then the overcoming limiting beliefs. But then you've got to have a goal.
Yes.
You've got to have an ideal version that you're aiming towards. Otherwise, where do you end up?
Right. Exactly. If you don't know what you're aiming for, how do you know when you got there? Exactly. And it makes me think, that the brain is a goal-seeking organ. It wants something to go towards, to create. And it sometimes thinks and finds it easier to create the negative, to create things that are easier to just live with and go, this is the way it's going to be. I'm never going to make that million or whatever it is that you want to create in your life. And other times, actually, if you reframe that, get a different perspective, you understand that by following a system, by creating a pattern that you can replicate and follow, you can live a really enjoyable, as you mentioned, an enjoyable life where you're aware on the journey, enjoying creating a new version of you and becoming your ideal self. And that's the thing, there is no end to that becoming. You never stop until you effectively die. You're always changing. Change is the only constant. So understanding that pattern of how you become the ideal self is fascinating. So okay, where do we go from here then? What is it that you teach and help people become aware of to help them understand becoming their ideal self?
Massive question. What do you teach? What do we teach? How do we help? I think the first thing I'd say is that the first step people take, and the first step I had to take down this road, was starting to look at the way we are as humans, and in particular the difference between between each individual human. So what is the difference between you and me? What is the difference between me and someone unbelievably successful who seems to be having a great time, like say Richard Branson, or the Warren Buffetts of the world, those who are achieving the things that you want. If you talk about a goal of the thing to head towards, then we're in business here, and quite often the goal is someone who is super successful in business. You want to choose someone who's not just super successful in business, but also at least assumes it feels like they are living their best life. They are actually happy with that life. And it might not be one person, it might be multiple people. You could have your kind of business guru that you're following, your goal is set, your blueprint is set, but actually that's got to be combined with some sort of more spiritual type leader who you're kind of saying, well, that's if I take this bit of this blueprint, that's going to get me the happiness, and if I take that blueprint, that's going to help me to kind of become the amazing business person I want to be. And you mend it all together, and you start to say, well, actually I can be these people. It's like we limit ourselves by believing that someone like Richard Branson just has the unique thing that no one else can have to be that person. And there is a truth to that, but also he's replicable in so many ways, and you can be that. You just have to make the choice. You have to start to read about him. You have to start to see how he thinks. And you have to start to realize that there are fundamentals in what you're thinking that are different to what he's thinking. Right. And his approach to challenge and to problems is different to yours, and that you can shift that. And I kind of look a great example of this on a very simple level that really hit me hard was I am a fan of the Great British Bake Off. And I was watching the most recent season, and there's one episode where two people got taken. I can't remember what they got called, but they got evicted from the process in 1 week. One guy and one girl. And I was like, watching these two people, and the camera's going back and forth between their faces. And it's just going back and forth between them. And then the fateful words are spoken. And you're looking at their faces, and one of them was just distraught. Utterly distraught. She started crying immediately. The face was in pure pain. And when another human being's feeling that internal pain, you could see it on her face. And she had just had exactly the same news as the other person, who actually smiled. He smiled. And then the next thing he did was laughed. And I thought to myself, how can it be that two people who have just gone through the same process, exactly the same competition, had heard the same news, one person that has such pain inside and the other takes it with such almost joy. It was like a childlike joy. And I thought, if I could be one person in any challenge in life, I want to be him, the one who smiles, the one who laughs, the one who hits the challenge and goes, oh, that was great. So what makes him different? Why is it that he is that? And that's the question. That's it. You've got to start blueprinting on that.
Yes. And who wouldn't want to be that person, right? If you get that sort of news, isn't it always better to act in that way, to see it as a positive, to look back and see the experiences? Wow, that's amazing. That's helped me grow, rather than looking back going, oh my goodness, what have I lost? Changing your perspective and seeing it in a better light is definitely a good thing. And it's interesting because some people think that there's fate, life is just going to be like this to you, and this is predetermined, life is fatalistic. And there are other people who believe that there's free will. Now, I would say they're two sides of the same coin, because one defines the other. What's the opposite? And we live in a world of duality. We have hot and cold. You can't have one without the other. One defines the other, in essence. So you've got predetermined, you've got free will, but also and then there's the environment, and the environment is your mind, and also where you live, and the influences around you. But if we look at that, your environment of how you think about things, that is something that you personally, the listeners, can cultivate within yourself to help you see things in a better way, to see it in a constructive and empowering way. Because as we know, all negative thoughts are disempowering, whereas empowering thoughts, seeing it in a positive way, are empowering. Bring the energy back to you. So creating that environment internally, knowing how to react when difficult situations happen. And we have to remind ourselves of that literally on a daily basis. We have to recommit every day to who it is that we are wanting to become. And as you mentioned, get clear on the business, get clear on your personal life, your lifestyle, your health, all of those areas that we want to get clear on, so that we can create that proactively. And when we are living every day, every moment, from that place of being becoming that person, then we are starting to become that ideal self, deliberately rather than reactively, like an awful lot of people. I believe sort of more like 85% of the world is very reactive to what's going on around them. Whereas the successful people who really enjoy their life are proactively creating it. And they understand that they've got to have challenge. You know what? Challenge is necessary for them to grow. So they have a growth mindset. If anyone reads the book, Carol Dweck, Mindset, it's about having a growth mindset, seeing the difficulties and the challenges as something that we can improve on and learn from and get better at. And that's when you know that, yeah, you're becoming your ideal self. Sorry, I kind of went on a monologue there, but
That's okay, Dom. You're allowed to. It's your podcast. You're allowed to. It's all good. You hit on something I think that is key to this, right? Is there is going to be challenge.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be, and that's actually the whole point, that it's not a linear journey of success after success. You don't just choose who you want to become and then just suddenly become them, that it's a journey. And part of that journey is going to take you almost around in circles. You're going to be turned back on yourself sometimes because it's going to feel like you haven't achieved, or you're just back where you were before, but actually you're not. That's kind of part of it. The hard part to see is the fact that as long as you're working on this side of yourself, and as long as you keep setting that goal and keep thinking about it and putting your own life focus and energy into it, you will keep getting closer to it. And I guess, like in my own life, I look back at I think this one is something I fundamentally keep grabbing onto as a life raft whenever I feel rocky, whenever I feel like, oh God, it's just how this is just too hard kind of feeling. And we all have that feeling sometimes, in any aspect of life. It doesn't matter. And the thing I grasp onto is when I look back and I think to the worst possible crap that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And so often in those circumstances, you look on it with proper hindsight and you realize it was the best thing that could have happened to you. Like literally the best thing, that you are a different person because of it in such a good way. Yeah. And you say, oh God, like, yeah, that was a awful trial in my life. It was a trauma. It felt like a trauma at the time, but the concept of a silver lining, the concept of the worst thing being the best thing that could ever happen to you, these are real, true concepts. And I hold on to that. I look back and say, actually, the harder it is now, the better it is for me.
In the longer term, yeah, exactly.
And it's going to feel awful. It's going to feel awful right now. And I guess that's the other side of the coin, is why does it feel awful? Because you want it to not feel awful. That's the whole point. We're looking for a happier life. Right. And like in our business, in property, it's a lot out of your control. And I'd say, right, a big trigger for me is mortgage companies. Right. They're a big trigger for me, because as soon as something's with them, it's like your business is made or broken by this company who is a massive machine that doesn't care at all about you. And at various points, and I remember at various points in time in the past waiting for months for a mortgage offer and getting more and more stressed, and the pain was acute inside of me, and I was like pushing and pushing to make something happen, but it's completely out of my control. I can't do anything. And I didn't, all the actions I took didn't need to come from a place of stress and pain. They could have actually come from a place of fine happiness, joy, like just knowing that I take an action, and that's just part of life. And I look back now and I know right now, at this moment in time, at the moment we have got a podcast on, I have waited 11 weeks for a mortgage offer on a refinance of a property where the bank already owns, they already have it. They are the lender. Yeah. They already have, they're the lender. And I just want to release, they've had the valuation, 11 weeks after the valuation has come back, I'm still waiting just for an offer. And it's in the past, I would have been tearing my hair out. And then I look at this same challenge and I say, wow, yes, it's still uncomfortable. I still feel some of that struggle. And I woke up this morning feeling a bit out of control. I did wake up a bit early. I had that pain inside of like starting to think it through, going, what should I need to do? What should I do next? But I'm in such a different place to where I was 2 years ago. And I've enjoyed the last 11 weeks a hell of a lot more. It's a whole different world. Yeah. And I'm so much happier because of it. And then that's it. You suddenly say, wow, look how far I've come. I'm en route. I'm not there yet. I never will be, like you said.
But I can get better every day. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that comes back to the self-awareness, which we talked about on previous podcasts, and limiting beliefs as well. But yeah, so it is about changing our perspective and reflecting, looking back and going, this is how much I've changed, this is how much I've improved. So you're reframing your past and reframing, looking back at how things have changed, and going, actually, yeah, I have improved. And that's when you're in the gain, rather than the gap in the gain. So Benjamin Hartley talks about this. If you look back and you're in the gap of going, what have I not got? That lady on Bake Off, all the stuff that she's lost, she's in the gap. He's in the gain. Look at all the stuff I've experienced as a result of being on this program. That's so important to get that right, to be in the gain the whole time. Look at what are the possibilities of going through this difficulty. What is it trying to teach me? I've got a quote by Napoleon Hill, which I always keep next to me. It's, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. And I carry that with me, because whenever there's something difficult, and there's always difficulties, having a difficult time at the moment, that actually is trying to teach me something. I have a theory, an idea that the universe has your back. It wants you to succeed. It wants the best for you. And it's always trying to help you get there. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but actually what it's doing is it's kind of knocking you back on course. And it's just whether or not you get the knocks, or whether you resist the knocks. And just try and understand the lesson as quickly as possible, so that you see the benefit in that situation, because every situation has a benefit. You can't have good without bad. You can't. So if you see a negativity in a situation, you're only seeing one side. You're not seeing the benefits. So easy to say, but when you're in it, oh my goodness. It's tough when you're in it, but especially if it's a big thing like divorce or miscarriages, whatever, awful things, death, that people have to go through. It is our judgments that keeps us unhappy. It's our attachments to the way we think things should be that keeps us from being happy. There's always happiness in this moment if you can choose to let it in.
You focused there on, at the beginning of that bit, you were talking about perspective and perception.
Yeah.
And this has been, I think, one of the areas that I've done a lot of thinking about, a lot of meditating on. What is this thing? Everyone, get a new perspective, find a different way to perceive what's happening to you. And what does that really mean? And actually talking about what came to mind while you were talking there, and becoming your ideal self, really is just a shift of perspective. That's it. It's a shift of perspective. And I've kind of done a lot of thinking about those two words, perspective and perception. I've come up with my own decision about what they kind of mean. And in theory, I feel that perspective is the angle at which you view something. So it's where you change. You've got a 3D model, you go to the other side of it and look at it from the back. This is your perspective on the thing. But the perception is how you're interpreting what you see. Do you actually believe what you see? Is it going? So I was kind of thinking of a simple metaphor for that was, if you put on some red lens glasses, and you start viewing the world through red, you've now changed your perspective.
Right.
And you're looking at things that were a different color and now red. But do you perceive them as red at that point? Or do you still perceive grass as green? Still perceive the sky as blue? Have you really taken that belief inside and gone, that is red. That is now red. And I actually believe that to my core. And now that's a rather random one, because in theory, you're not going to do that. You're going to put those glasses on. You're going to see it red and you go, but I know, if someone asked me, I'd know that grass is green.
Yeah.
And that's where becoming your ideal self is a struggle. It's a challenge, because I think we keep on doing this. We keep trying to change our perspective. And the skill, the hard work we have to put in is speeding up the perspective shift. So something happens that is a bit shit, or a problem comes up that you need to solve quickly, and you want to be solving it in the right frame of mind to get the best solution. Do the Richard Branson solution, basically. You need to shift your perspective on it as quickly as possible, so you're in a new frame of mind, in the best frame of mind possible. But you also have to shift your beliefs about it. You literally have to have shifted your core beliefs, and that's the work. I think that's the part that keeps the challenge, that keeps, every time you come across a challenge, you get a bit closer. Yeah. But it takes a while, because those core beliefs are based on your whole life's worth of habituality, and your whole life's worth of neurological pathways being programmed in. We have a hard wiring for that belief, and that's the process, that's the journey. And as long as you keep going towards that ideal version of yourself, keep reminding yourself, it gets quicker every time.
Yes.
It
Yes.
really does. And eventually you don't have to even think about it. And that's the moment you've become.
Yes.
That's the moment you are the new self, because you suddenly go, you don't even think of the of the other option. It's just the perspective is there, and you just believe it.
Yeah.
The perception is there. And you say things, Dom, that my whole life I never heard people say. This is why we love you. You say things and you say them with such belief. I'm like, I don't believe them when you first say them. And you just, people I'm sure listening to this podcast are like, what? Sometimes I'm sure you say stuff like, oh, well, what is he on about really? Like because you just say them because you believe them. And to you, it's just, that's the world how it is. But you've gotten there, and like, it just comes out of you. But for the rest of us, it's a journey towards, for me, it's like a realization journey of like, oh yes, what Dom said there, that is true. That is true.
But
He's right.
I went through that too, and it is a matter of reminding myself on a regular basis. When I always remember it really clearly because I've repeated it to myself. But I had a coaching weekend, and I had a moment of enlightenment of how it's all thoughts, and I was on a high for 2 weeks, and then I went back into my old self, my old way of thinking and being, and then I went down into sort of even deeper depression. But it was in that moment of deep depression that I realized that you don't change until it becomes part of your personality, a part of who you are, and that's the way you see the world. So it is a continuous journey of becoming the whole time. You have to remind yourself on a regular basis, but the more you do it, the more, as you say, it becomes part of your ingrained identity. And you've reminded yourself so many times that is the way you look at the life now. And I think that's the point that you get to, but even then is never ending. You still have to repeat things. And James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits, he says people ask him how long does it take to create a habit? He says, well, as long as you keep doing it, then it's a habit. But as soon as you stop, it's not, right? So it's like it's never ending. So that's something to be aware of, is that I have to remind myself regularly too, Dave, to think this way.
Oh, good to know, Dom. Good to know. Yeah. You're not a god.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. So it's what have we got to remind ourselves, and hence the environment bit of put things around you that remind you of the way to be. Fill your mind, like behind me, I've got loads of books. I want to fill my environment with stuff that inspires me, that makes me feel good. I exercise so that I get the right sort of pumping of blood into the brain, so that I've got clear thinking. All of these things are things that we can do to help us remind ourselves of who we are becoming. And it helps the environment, both externally in terms of what we surround ourselves with, who we surround ourselves with, the information we surround ourselves with, the food we eat that gives us the energy and the clarity of mind to think and have energy in this moment. Those are all the things that people can do that's going to help them effectively live a happier life and become that ideal self, continually become that ideal self. So, and then so the question I got up for you then, now that I've just gone on to that another monologue, is what are the outcomes then? What is it that people get as a result of continually focusing on becoming that ideal self?
The magic of this one is that, as far as I'm concerned, if you can do this in every aspect of your life, in your business, in your spiritual level, like in every aspect, the outcome is unlimited potential. You can literally achieve anything. And on the one side, if you're approaching life with this attitude, you can look at someone, and if you get good at doing it, you can look at someone and say, I want to be like them. And guess what? You will be like them. It won't just be a matter of kind of wishing it for the rest of your life. With a good skill in this area, you will evolve yourself to be like that person. And that is, you become the chameleon of the world. Yeah. And you can employ that power to anything.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. You suddenly go, I want to be more joyful. I want to have more fun. I want to have more money. What do I need to do? And you suddenly look at the blueprint of those around you, and you're right on the habits. You've got internal habits, and then that side of is the hard part to change. The easy part is, in theory, the part you've just described, which is change your external environment. to give you that inspiration around you, to change what books you're reading, change who you're watching on YouTube. Don't watch someone who you wouldn't want to be like.
Right.
Watch someone who inspires you, and
Yes.
you will immediately start imbibing new ways, things automatically imbibing new ways of being just by watching them and learning about them, reading their biographies. I'm working my way through the most inspiring people biographies. So I'm currently on Gandhi's autobiography because I just think he's one of those worldwide inspiring people. And I just think it opens your mind. You suddenly see how someone thinks when you read that, and it changes you.
It does.
And I think that approach to life, it gives you unlimited potential, and anything becomes possible. And the more you realize that, the easier it is to achieve anything.
Right.
Right? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in that respect.
It is. It's that self-talk of what is possible, and allowing you to experience and be curious of anything and everything that goes on, rather than having the limiting thought of, oh, it has to be this way. The environment, my family, the people around me are stopping me, and this is why I have to do it in this way.
But what I was going to say though is, it's hard. Like the way I just explained it there, it just sounds easy. And the way we talk about it, it sounds like, oh, just believe you want to be like that person, you'll become like them. I'll read a bit about them. It's not easy. And the main reason it's not easy is because, yes, the external habits of reading about things, watching the right things, surrounding yourself with the right things, that part you can do, and you can just put it in place and kind of start following that path. Internally, we all as humans fear the change. You're always going to have that. Your body isn't comfortable with change. Your mind might be saying, this is where I want to go, this is who I want to be. Your body is not going to be following. You're going to have to drag it. And that issue is that the body is scared of change. It's undeniably fearful of things being different, because what it understands is what it's happy with. If it gets it and understands, it doesn't matter if that thing's negative, it's going to be like, that's the thing I want because I'm happy, because I get it, I know it. The unknown is a fearful place.
Right.
And if you're trying to change, even if you can see the goal, when you're heading towards it, you're going to start changing things, and your body isn't going to understand that, and it's going to be going, this is worrying, something's different, something's wrong, and it's going to start giving you every old reason under the sun not to head that way and to be who you normally are.
Yes.
That is the biggest challenge of becoming your ideal self.
Yeah. It makes me think of the quote by Einstein, which is, measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And that's why I really admire people who are always challenging themselves, understanding that struggle is a necessary part of the journey to become a different version of them, that actually there is enjoyment in struggle. Now, we can all relate to the physical struggle of exercise, and knowing that at the end of the exercise, or the run or the cycle or the swim or whatever it is you might be doing, there's the euphoria and joy, the chemicals being released, endorphins and things like that, that make you feel good because you've done the exercise. But during the actual process, it was pretty damn hard. It was painful. You were sweating. You were just tired. You wanted to give up. That's a great metaphor for life. There's certain things that we go through in life, like building a business, where there is struggle. And actually, it's that, I think they call it second degree happiness or something like that, where it's happiness in the future. So you're doing something knowing it's difficult now, but actually, if you get through it, you're going to create a better outcome. So it's delayed gratification, effectively. And then just becoming aware of that and choosing to actually start to enjoy the journey and not be struggling, or rather not struggling is good, but suffering, choosing not to suffer, but enjoying the journey of, if you want to call it struggle, you can call it struggle, but just the journey of creating, and not judging it. Then you're present and you're enjoying the journey. It doesn't matter if you get there or not, but you're enjoying creating something new. But that's where new possibility exists, is in that new creation. If you're trying to change your life from a position of doing the same thing, it ain't gonna happen. You've got to focus and put energy on the new, on the creating new income, on creating new opportunities, new connections, new friends. All those things are where real change happens. It's when you can create from the unknown place rather than the known. But everyone wants that safety, don't they, of knowing what's going to happen. But of course, actually, that's not where the world changes. The world changes in the unknown.
I think that you basically just described the process in the lovely way. This you've just described shifting your perspective, and you've just described the approach to it being struggle is good, and that's it's as simple as that. I really think that, you know, we've got two routes, and we've got the things that happen to us and the things that we bring upon ourselves, things we actually go out to try and change. So the becoming your ideal self is very much, what are your actions you're taking to change actively, proactively who you are? And I think that's a lot of focus on that. You know, it's just like choosing to go out of your comfort zone and choosing to make change, and even though it's uncomfortable, and choosing to go through challenge and struggle to become someone different, who isn't a different person. It's just someone with a different approach to life, and therefore reacts differently and acts differently because their perspective is different. So on that side, and then there's the other side, which is understanding that challenge comes to you and you don't get a say in that, and things are going to happen in that, and that every challenge that comes to you, you have the option of flipping it on its head and turning it to greater good and becoming someone better because of it. And that's there in every challenge. And I kind of split every challenge into three options for me. It's like, you either break. Actually, option number one is you run away. Challenge comes and you run away. That means that challenge has come to you and you've decided, I don't want that challenge in my life anymore. I'm going to go and do something else, change business, change job. And I've run away to avoid it. And that challenge existed, but I'd rather not have it in my life. So you've run away. And that means you keep the internal exactly the same. You don't have to worry. You just go to a new external. That's number one. Number two is you can't run away, or you choose not to, and it breaks you. And that becomes a life trauma. It becomes something you're going to cling on to for the rest of life. And that moment of having to take on something and it just being too much for you, and you not being able to become malleable or change your perspective or change something, and becoming it damaging you. And that's the second option. And the third one is what we're talking about today, which is to say, no, every challenge can be taken head on in a very positive way by shifting that perspective, shifting your perception of it, so that you become something greater. And you use it to adapt and evolve. You remold yourself to see that challenge in a better way. And if you do that, then life becomes happier, because you start to see the journey. It doesn't matter what the challenge is. The journey is enjoyable. It's like, oh yeah, great. The next challenge is here. It's going to be difficult, but I'm gonna enjoy the ride. It's like it's like a tough roller coaster.
I love that's such a fantastic way of looking at it with those three choices. The other, just a point on that would be that I think for the people who run away, life has a funny way of coming after you, because there's a lesson there that it wants you to get. So it'll repeat itself in another format until you get the lesson. It's like the people who who've been through, I don't know, 4 or 5 relationships, straight divorces, marriage and divorces and stuff like that. They haven't got that lesson around actually they're creating it. To some extent, obviously there's a partner as well, but they're creating it to some degree, because if they weren't there, it couldn't be created. So I think people, warning to anyone who's avoided certain things, it will come around again. It'll bite you on the bum, and you're going to have to deal with it. So you may as well deal with it first time, like we've just been saying. See it as an opportunity.
Fantastic. What an amazing conversation. I hope you took a lot away from that that you can implement in your business to get better, easier results, and just see what transformations occur for you. We really hope you are enjoying the show so far, and if you are, we would love for you to share with a friend. We've had some amazing feedback about the programme so far. People saying that it's very different to other property podcasts, taking a very different perspective on growth and investing. So please share it with a friend who you think might benefit from a shift in perspective and would like to come along for the property lifestyle mastery journey as well. So next week on the show, we are bringing it back to the strategy pillar, and we are talking about deals and investors, and specifically, which first, the chicken or the egg? And we're going to talk about our journey from doing no deals to actually doing multiple deals. So it's Dave and I sitting next to a beautiful beach and beautiful lake in northern Italy. So come and join us for a very different kind of perspective and conversation on that journey. Until then, have a wonderful week.